If you remember Galactic Conquest, Space Battles, and Flying Palpatine,
Oh dear.
then you grew up playing the original Star Wars Battlefront 2. But which one? Because there were 4 versions of this game, and in this video we're going to compare each of them. But first, let's set the scene. 2004's Battlefront was a big success for LucasArts. Not only was it well received by both critics and fans, it also became one of the best-selling Star Wars games up to that point. So naturally, Pandemic Studios began working on a sequel straight away. And the developers were given less than a year to complete Battlefront 2, as LucasArts wanted the game's release to coincide with the Revenge of the Sith DVD. So how do they do? Well, let's begin by taking a look at the PC version. There are many different game modes, but I always found the campaign to be a good overview of the game and its mechanics. So let's start there. The original game's campaign was a collection of iconic battles from across the saga. This time around, the developers tried to branch out and create a story following the 501st Legion. This means that each battle is preceded by a very somber, very slow motion cutscene narrated by Tim Morrison himself.
It was hot, it was sandy, chaotic. Nothing at all like the simulations on Camino.
The tutorial takes place at the Battle of Geonosis and introduces the player to all the main game elements through a set of oddly specific objectives.
A Geonosian got killed and dropped a holocron on top of the Techno-Union ship.
Take that, droid. Call me clone, sniper elite. Ow, shit. Of course, one of the game's biggest new features are the playable heroes. Each map will have a specific hero or villain, in this case Mace Windu. And the Jedi have everything you'd expect: saber attack, saber throw, force push, and of course, the moon jump. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the final of the Geonosis High Jump Championship, and he's off. And he's done it! Fantastic! A perfect 10 from the judges. This Geonosis map has been slightly redesigned from the first game. It's a bit smaller and no longer focuses on the single spire in the center. Plus, this is the only map that has Phase 1 clone armor. Now, Battlefront 2 is very much a Revenge of the Sith tie-in game, which makes sense. It came out the same year as the movie, and the first game already covered most of the major battles from the other 5 films. And the campaign very much reflects this, as the next 6 maps are all from Episode 3. The first one is Mygeeto, where we get introduced to the Phase 2 clone armor. Now, in addition to the 5 existing classes from the first game, we also get a second special class. The clones have a commander with his nifty machine gun, which does take a second to warm up. As for the droids, they've called in their cousins, the T-800s, to lend a hand. The rebels get boffin spies, while the Empire get officers. But back to Mygeeto, which is one of the more action-packed maps in the game. Plus, we get to play as everyone's favorite Conehead. Now, what's the point in a shield generator if you can just walk around it? Now I realize where the Kenobi series got it from. The campaign also expands the levels beyond your typical conquest gameplay. Some of the maps will have you take out targets, while others, like this one, will have you capturing the flag, or in this case, a giant tic-tac. Now, the first game's maps did have both ground vehicles and starfighters. However, the maps were just a bit too small to get the most out of the starfighters. And so, this time around, the starfighters now have their own dedicated space combat maps. These do provide a nice change of pace from the ground combat. The layout of the fleets can be slightly different, and you have a different planet down below depending on the map, but most of these had a similar pattern to them. You know what I'm talking about. Take out a few starfighters, then the command ship shields, then the various bits on the outside, hop inside the enemy's hangar, and then try to blow up the generator, only to run out of explosives and spend ages popping blaster bolts at it because you were too lazy to go back into the hangar and find the gong droid. Finally, you run outside and race the enemy NPCs to the last starfighter, only to, of course, lose. I've always wondered, how do humans get inside the droid starfighters? Seems like a tight fit.
Well done, gents. With flying like that, the Republic is well on its way to victory.
Whoops. Oh, never mind, still won. Next up, Felucia, which comes with these stuttering Acklays who will take out your entire platoon if you're not careful. You do get to play as Aayla Secura though, so that's nice. Now, this version of the Kashyyyk map has also been reworked. It's a bit bigger and includes the section behind the wall, although I did prefer the brighter colors of the original. Naturally, Yoda is the playable character on this map. Next up is Utapau, where you naturally get Obi-Wan, who's overdue for a haircut. Am I the only one who would waste my go of the Jedi trying to jump this giant chasm?
Although I'm leaving, the Force will be with you. Always.
Okay, time for the epic battle. Obi-Wan versus Grievous. Oh, never mind. And then we get the infamous Order 66 at the Jedi Temple. And these Jedi are a major pain in the ass with the way they spawn out of the ceiling and then try to destroy their own bookshelves. What's more, they also hide a bunch of these mall cops as reinforcements. Well, are you just gonna stand there or go kill some Jedi? All the areas of the temple seen in episode 3 are present in this map. We've got the council chamber, the archives, the library, and even this nice balcony area. Ah, Coruscant, what a beautiful city. Hold on, why are there droid starfighters in the sky? The highlight of this level is of course playing as Anakin and going to town on all of these generic Jedi. With Order 66 successfully executed, the troopers get a change of wardrobe and begin their Imperial campaign. And this is where things get real wacky when it comes to the campaign's plot. First up, Naboo, where the Empire tries to take down the new queen who's decided to start a rebellion with a bunch of Captain Panaka clones. This map is pretty much identical to the original, only set at night. It's nice to see the Empire's Dark Trooper has received a bit of an upgrade. The crappy pistol from the first game has been replaced with this electric shocker. This is followed by a new map, Mustafar, where some Geonosian has decided to reactivate all the battle droids. It's a decent map that provides a good mix of tight corridors and open walkways. Plus it ends with you trying to swat this big bug out of the sky. We then get the Clone Rebellion on Kamino, where stormtroopers take on clones in Phase 2 armor. You do get to play as Boba Fett, who faces his toughest adversary, the Door Switch. You also get this incredible line of dialogue.
Before we leave, the Empire wants us to collect some DNA samples from our evil brothers.
And look, sure enough, it's just a giant strand of DNA. Now this is the second Kamino map, and this version is quite a bit bigger than the original. Plus, the cloning facility is an actual facility this time around instead of just a few corridors in the first game. Okay, what's next? Well, remember that time hundreds of rebel prisoners broke out and almost took over the Death Star? Yep, it happened. This is another map with a bunch of throwbacks to the movie. We've got the docking bay, the trash compactor, the meeting room, the detention center. Oh my god, they've imprisoned a GOG droid. Now, I know a lot of people really like this map, but I always found it to be a bit annoying with all the long, winding corridors. This mission in the campaign is extra annoying because you have to capture the flag, and every time you die, it spawns you right on the other side of the map. Oh, and it also ends with this random Jedi turning up out of nowhere. Excuse me, sir, are you lost? The next map is Polis Massa. That's right, remember the asteroid from the end of Revenge of the Sith? It has its own map. See what I mean when I said they really wanted to tie this game into Episode 3. Look, they even have the room where Padme had the twins. Ooh-bah, rebel scum. Ooh-bah. This is actually a really big map. In addition to the base, there are also the caves, the hangars, and the outside area. And this leads us into the events of the original trilogy with the attack on the blockade runner. Alright boys, let's go. Oh well, just like in the movie, I guess. The tight corridors really make this map a meat grinder, and it ends with you taking down the princess. These don't look like stun bolts, but I'm sure she'll be fine. Next up is this Yavin map, which is pretty much just lifted from the original game. You advance up to the temple and then take out the Boffin spies. The final campaign map is the Battle of Hoth, and this is another map that's really similar to the original game. Only now you're playing as the Empire, which is a nice inverse to the original game. Instead of flying the snow speeders, we're driving the walkers. And look, you can even shoot the speeders as they try to tie you up. Sure, you can use the walkers to attack the shield generator, or you can be a real man and spend 2 hours chipping away at it with a blaster. After making it to the hangar, you have to take on wave after wave of really stupid rebels. Look, why are you hiding behind a crate, and why are you staring at the wall? After capturing the hangar, you get to play as the Dark Lord himself.
What? Why did they spawn me halfway across the battlefield? It'll be too far to walk. Time to moon jump.
Now, this version of the map does have a back hangar where the Falcon sits, and once it gets away, Vader marches past all the rebels and then places a bomb under the transport. I guess they must have deleted that scene in the movie. And that's it. The Empire banishes the rebels from Hoth, and Tem tells us all about their glorious victory.
Order had finally returned to the galaxy.
That's right, nothing else happened after the Battle of Hoth. Now, there are other maps that weren't used in the campaign, but most of them have just been carried over from the first game, like Endor, Jabba's Palace, and Mos Eisley. The Dagobah map is new, and as expected, it is a dark swamp. But you get some Easter eggs like Luke's downed X-Wing and Yoda's hut, which is boarded up. Has it been repossessed by the bank? The instant action mode from the first game has also been expanded, introducing several new modes like the fan favorite Hero Assault, Assault, where you pick a side and duke it out across Mos Eisley. The hero side consists of Han, Chewie, Obi-Wan, Luke, Yoda, Mace Windu, Leia, Aayla Secura, and Ki-Adi-Mundi, who frankly looks shocked that he made it into this game. You can also tell this is a 2005 game because Luke has that emo fringe thing going on. The villains consist of Boba Fett, Vader, Jango, Maul, Grievous, the Emperor, Anakin, and Count Dooku, who also seems surprised to be here. Wow, Dooku sure is spry for an older fella. Look, he can literally do a quadruple moon jump, but he still doesn't compare to the Emperor and Vader, who can literally just fly in this game. Another new mode is Hunt, which literally allows you to hunt down famous Star Wars species. For example, on Endor, you can either wipe out all the Ewoks or play as the natives to avoid elimination. Ah, there we go, spear right in the dick. This mode also covers the Geonosians, the Wampas on Hoth, the Wookiees on Kashyyyk, the Tuskens versus the Jawas in a turf war over the streets of Mos Eisley, and of course the Gungans, who the developers didn't seem to trust with blasters. The best they can do is build turrets and then man them. The Galactic Conquest mode has also been overhauled and expanded. This time it's presented in a board game similar to Risk. The action is spread across the galaxy, with both factions trying to take over all the planets via ground and space combat. And of course we also have the online multiplayer mode. Battlefront 2 built on its predecessor to become one of the best online experiences in all of Star Wars. Growing up, many of us have spent hundreds of hours fighting over command posts, engaging in dogfights, and moon jumping across Mos Espa with fellow Star Wars fans around the world. The original servers did go down in 2014, but were relaunched in 2017 with the release of the Steam version. These days, the Battlefront online community definitely seems a lot livelier than its predecessor. I tried the Steam version several times and always found at least one public server filled with players. The PC version of Battlefront 2 has also received incredible support from the modding community. There have been so many different patches, add-ons, and mods released over the years that I'm going to have to dedicate a separate video to them in the future. But that will do it for the PC version, which we can use as a baseline to compare against other ports. The first being the PlayStation 2 version. And straight away, the first thing that jumps out at you are the menus, which are completely different. I'm not sure why the developers decided to go with such a drastic change, but I kind of prefer the console menus. They're a bit more aesthetically pleasing, and I also like the footage from the movies in the background. Now, naturally, the PS2 graphics were a bit of a downgrade from the PC, but I think it more than makes up for it with its split-screen multiplayer, something the PC version had completely neglected. Pretty much every single player mode has split-screen multiplayer on PlayStation 2, from the campaign to instant action, and of course Galactic Conquest, which would end up being the definitive local multiplayer experience for this game. I can't even begin to tell you how much time my friends and I spent either working together to take over the galaxy or locked in fierce tactical combat against each other. And local multiplayer aside, the console versions could also go online. Okay, moving on to the Xbox version, which at first glance seems identical to the PlayStation 2. However, this is the only version of the game to have 4-player split screen across all local multiplayer modes. And as someone who had the PlayStation 2 version, going over to my friend's house and seeing 4-player split screen just seemed like some kind of Sith witchcraft. But wait, there's more. The Xbox version also had exclusive DLCs which added 2 new characters, Kit Fisto showing off his beach bod and funky lightsaber, and Asajj Ventress. Now this was the first depiction of Ventress in 3D, and boy did she look terrifying. The DLC also added hero assault modes for Coruscant, Kashyyyk, Mygeeto, and Naboo. It also added a bunch more maps from the original game, including Yavin 4, Cloud City, Renvar Harbor, and Renvar Citadel. All in all, the DLCs plus the 4-player split screen made the Xbox port of the game the most complete version of Battlefront 2. And finally, let's round things off with the handheld port of Battlefront 2 for the PSP. And I've always been impressed with this version. Look, I've covered a lot of PSP ports on this channel, and way too often they just end up being a completely different game from the flagship. On the other hand, Battlefront 2 on PSP is as close as possible to the console version given the hardware limitations. Same maps, same classes, same vehicles, it has Galactic Conquest, space battles, hero assault, and it has multiplayer via PSP ad hoc. Yes, obviously the graphics are lower in quality, and there have been some substantial cuts made to fit this game on a UMD. 7 of the ground maps and 4 of the space maps have unfortunately been cut, but apparently a few of them are still hidden on the UMD disc. The controls have also been adjusted to make up for for the absence of a second analog stick, you can either auto-aim or use the face buttons. It does feel a bit awkward to start with, but you get used to it surprisingly quick. The 501st campaign has also unfortunately been removed. Instead, we have 3 challenge modes. There's Imperial Enforcer, which is mainly just a repackaged version of the Hunt mode, having the Empire take out Gungans, Ewoks, and Jawas, Rogue Assassin, where you have to take out a bunch of Imperial officers, and Rebel Raider, where you have to retrieve these big pucks. All in all, I still think the PSP version is a really decent port. And so there we have it, every version of the original Battlefront 2. This game built on its predecessor in pretty much every single way. It would go on to sell over 6 million copies and build a legacy as one of the greatest Star Wars games ever made. A direct sequel was pretty far into development but ended up being cancelled. Instead, we'd get 2 PSP spin-offs and a reboot series from EA, but all of those are topics for another video. In the meantime, please let me know your memories of Star Wars Battlefront 2 in the comments. Which version did you have? Who was your favorite hero? And how many of you still quote this guy?
Now hear this, all hands man your battle stations.
As always, thanks for watching. Please consider supporting me on Patreon, and a big thanks to my existing patrons. Also, if you've enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.